Hi everyone, this is Alec from Reddit's Hex Encounter community. Thanks for joining me today as I give you a live stream of GMT Games, The Skies Above the Reich, designed by Jeremy White. This is a game, as the beautiful box art here might lead you to believe, in which the player is commanding a squadron or a staffel of German day fighters, the Me-109, attempting to disrupt Allied bombing raids or to pick off bombers returning from the raids, facing the B-17s and their defensive formations. This is a solitaire air war game, and really, thematically, it's kind of the other side of a game such as B-17 Queen of the Skies. Really, one of the first solitaire air war games, where, while it was very table-driven and a lot of dice being involved, that game had players simulating the experience of a bomber crew over an entire campaign. This game is much more so trying to play the other side of that with many more modern board gaming conceits. And so let's just go over the bits real quick so everyone that's unfamiliar can kind of see what it is that we're working with. This map here that you're seeing is the formation map. This is where you will play your actual interceptions and attempting to make passes at the bombers. There's also a status track here over at the left. One area for the escort display where you can manage the Spitfire or P-47 escorts. A whole fate box here on the right, whereas your fighters get damaged. You can put them off to the side and then roll later to see what happened to them, and then a generic turn track over here. Their game plays with a number of randomization mechanics, one of which is decks of cards. There's one deck of card here listed as continuing fire. That gives you the results and what happens when your fighters fly through the bomber formation. And then there's a number of decks of cards here for the various approach angles that one can attack, that depending on how high you are relative to the bomber, how much defensive fire the bomber is giving, you'll get some number of symbols here that give you the resolution of that attack. So there's card draws that are involved. When damage occurs, there's then generally chit pulls that are just random chit pulls that then give you the type of damage that you'll see on that bomber and then the exact damage value. And a lot of blocks as well. So the fighters themselves are represented by these wooden fighter blocks that have both the determined side, as in they're really aggressive and going for it, and an evasive side, they're engaging the bombers from further out. To keep track of who started play at what altitude, they all will then also have altitude blocks where a fighter here, just on the map, is low altitude. A fighter with a single block under them is at level with the bomber stream. And then a block with 2 altitude blocks under it is coming in high. And hopefully coming in out of the sun. That's going to be a technique that you really want to try and maximize. Okay, so we'll put this away. There's, as with any somewhat narrative-driven game, which I will classify this as a narrative, it evokes a lot of narratives. There's logs, and the log is two-sided, in that one side of the log you are keeping track of the staffel, and its successes and experiences mission by mission. And then on the other side, individual pilots to track their experience, their skills, and notes about them. So this is one that I've done 2 missions on, done 2 interceptions of outbound bomber formations in the early war, 1943 scenario. And so in that scenario, I start with 6 expert pilot, and you'll see I've got various annotations of what skills my 6 expert pilots have. Having flown 2 missions, they have various amounts of experience points. Why on earth they decided to label this EP and not XP is beyond me. And then some notes here. This is just so I can remember. And I try to be consistent then with the notes here for experience. And so, for instance, in the last mission, Freeling here actually got a bomber to drop out of formation. That was worth 1 experience point for him. Subsequently, he chased down that bomber and killed him, which was worth another 2 experience points. But in that combat with the isolated bomber, his plane caught fire and he was wounded. So, but he was recovered, and so he has some experience for doing that. So in general, you're going to get experience for a pilot every time you do a mission that they don't die. And then you're going to get experience if you kill escorts, and then experience if you knock bombers out of the formation or kill them. In addition to the pilots gaining experience, which will allow green pilots to become not green, or veteran pilots to become experts, the squadron itself gains experience and, importantly, victory points. So I'm playing the advanced game of the long campaign. So in this one, you get experience points for knocking bombers out of formation. But you don't get victory points for knocking bombers out of formation. You only get victory points for shooting down the bombers. And so the first mission resulted in only a very little bit of victory points, as we killed only 1 bomber. Having killed 3 bombers in my second mission, I was able to get more experience points. So the 1942, I misspoke, 1942 season is 6 missions long. So we'll go ahead and go through the process of generating the sortie for the next mission. And as we get into this, I'll go ahead and just state that while this game, you're following a squadron, you're following a pilot roster, you're keeping track of notes and experiences, and people are gaining experience, there is a strong narrative. I've got 2 pilots right now over here in the wounded box that I'm going to try and get back to duty to keep getting them experience. There are a lot of decisions throughout this. This is still a decision-rich narrative experience. So there's still quite a lot of game here. Okay, so let's just go through and get started here on setting up for the next mission. And we'll go on the play aid that does so. The campaign's been started. We'll skip that. First thing that we'll do is we'll figure out what mission and what map we're going to be doing. So we'll be rolling on the seasons table for the map, the mission types, and the number of operation points. So looking here in 1942, 6 missions long. This early, we're probably facing map 1, which is the really ineffectual 8th Air Force bombing formations. 20% chance or so we'll get the more effectual one. So I'll just roll a die over here. I rolled a 6, which tells me that we're here on map 1. So that will be annotated here for mission 3. Okay, we're on map 1. Next thing we need to do is to figure out what type of mission it is. We can get the bombers laden with bombs inbound to the target. We can find them while they're bombing over a target or near the target, and we can get them outbound. So rolling on that die, I rolled a 5. Oh, this is going to be interesting. I'm going to have to look up some rules here as we play, since there's going to be an interesting flak mechanic. So at 5, we are near target. And so I'll make a note here. Mission type is near. And we'll see how many operation points that we have. And operation points are what you use to sortie fighters, get them out, get additional resources, get additional kit. How do I want to do this? I think, so I will note here that my squadron currently has 12 squadron experience. And what that lets you do is that lets you, in this phase of the game, for a cost of 7 squadron experience, you could take a die roll and go, nope, not that die roll. I'm going to do this instead. To be honest with you, I don't really mind this being near target. I think that'll be interesting to show. And so why don't I see how this OP roll goes? Because if this goes poorly, I'll certainly want to use my experience. All right, 3. Okay, yeah, that's pretty terrible. I'm not going to take that 3 result. I think that only having 2 op points is essentially only going to let me scramble 2 fighters for this interception. And while certainly manageable for this stream, isn't going to lead me to a lot of success. So I'm going to line through my 12 experience, subtract 7 from that. Okay, so I've used that. I am now going to instead choose to be on the 6 result. So I have 6 op points. Before I get started here, I'll note that, again, I do have 2 wounded fighters. At the beginning of any mission, a wounded fighter comes back to the active roster on a roll of 9 or a 10. So we'll say Freeling is the red die, Johann is the black die. We'll see what we get here. Okay, Freeling stays wounded, however, Johann returns to the fight. So I'll move you back there. And we'll go ahead, who is Johann? He's one of my aces. I'll go ahead and bring him on this one. So I'll go ahead and create my roster here of fighters. We'll take Johann, Kemmler, and Claude from that half of the squadron. From this other half of the squadron, why don't I take Zweigart, and then Neumann and Altsor. So this will be the 6 that I bring. Now you'll notice over here on this other side of the log, you'll see that there are a number of things that you can spend your OP for to bring on the mission. Any 109 you bring costs you 1. And you can do attachments to it. The 109s are available essentially at the start of the game. You can get auxiliaries. These are aircraft from other squadrons detailed to the day bombing, so the BF-110, Ju-88s, so the Focke-Wulf 190s, and then some later war games. Most of these come in at an OP of 1, or 1 for a small pile of them, which is fine. However, one thing you'll notice here is many of these come in much later in the game. So we're not going to be able to bring them into this fight in the 1942 scenario. You also can spend OP for cannons, very high caliber guns to fire from a long distance. Again, starting next season, 1943. They briefly experimented with dropping bombs from above the formations, and there's a mechanic for that, again in 1943. Rockets were more successful technology that was developed mid-43, and then finally armor. They started actually strapping steel plates to parts of these aircraft in vital areas. That's going to be a 1943 late. So right now for us, the only thing to spend OP on are the fighters. And so we just hired our 3 fighters. As a mnemonic to help me remember what my 2 ace experts I'm bring to the fight, Zweigart is a lucky pilot, which lets him negate a hit once a fight. So I will go ahead and put his luck symbol on him. And Johann can break anywhere. It allows him to, instead of zipping one way that his inertia would not normally be carrying him, he can actually pull a pretty evasive maneuver and get someplace else. Okay, so I've spent the OP. We're on that part. The next step here of setup would be to roll escort. I'm going to delay on that. That's not going to be something necessarily that I know until I get into the air. So I like the suspense of, getting into the fight and then figuring out what the escort's going to do. Okay, so now we determine our situation and we go into the situation manual. So, situation manual is broken into sections based on which map you're on. We're on map 1, near target. That's going to start on page 3. Okay. First thing that we're going to have to do is you'll notice that, let me clear out some of the stuff from the board and we'll start using the board. You'll notice that there's actually 2 sides and 2 different formations, Formation A and Formation B, for these 1942 map 1 formations. And it's arbitrary which one you get. So even is map A, odd is map B. We are even, which is going to put us on map A. We will not be using map B. Okay, so first thing that we have to figure out is to figure out where the damage is on the aircraft as they approach. And if I recall appropriately, I may have to stop real quick and look this up. You use the inbound map for the setup for the near mission. Here we go. Just check here real quick on where this gets set up, because essentially this part of the map here, there's a flak phase near the city. So the city's sending up flak, which is actually also really hazardous to the day fighters. So we're not going to be doing this. All right, well, let's just go ahead and take the inbound damage locations and go with that for the moment. And that was incorrect. I'll post a correction to the notes of this. So 9 tells me that there's a random damage on these 2 bombers. So I'll go ahead and pull a random damage marker for the ones on either wing. Okay. Okay, so the thing that we're going to check for is a catastrophic event here. This aircraft has no catastrophic event, so that's just damage of 1. This aircraft has the potential for a catastrophic event. That number there is a 9. So we'll go ahead and roll. If I roll a 9 or higher, that aircraft actually fell out of formation before he got to the city. I rolled a 6, so he's still there. Okay. So this bomber has 3 damage. This bomber has 1 coming into the city. Okay, so we'll go with that. There's a step to determine whether or not the formation is anchored. Essentially, for the later war formations, these elements are attached to much larger bombing groups. So where are the rest of the bombers in those other groups? Certainly you're not flying through that space. Where is the sun? That's the next really big question, because if you can come out of the sun, you're going to do very well for yourself. I rolled a 2, which tells me that the sun is on the flank that is furthest away from us. So I have a handy dandy sun marker. I'll put that in the approach high to remind me that if I come through that approach, I'll be coming out of the sun. Okay, next question here, number of tactical points. This is essentially, I like to think of it as how much free energy do we have going into this, or how much astuteness do we have leading up to the interception to give us more options as we progress through it. I rolled a 6, which, looking here, that gives me 2 tactical points. Excuse me. Okay, so I'll just mark the 2 tactical points on this side. Flight limit. This is how far, how much gas we have to remain engaged with these fighters. Rolling that one, I rolled a 6, which tells me that I have 6 turns to do all of this. So I'll put the flight limit at 6. Okay. Oh, and yep, here it is. Previous damage. Here we go. Previous damage. To determine the damage inbound, use the inbound. Okay, got it. So we did that right. Okay. So we have determined our situation. We have the pre-existing damage on 2 of the bombers. The sun is actually going to be useful for us. We have a flight limit of 6. We have 2 tactical points. No contrails here. They're not flying that high. So now we resolve the mission. We're actually going to do it now. So go grab the appropriate play aid for mission resolution here. First thing that we do is a move. And there's also a note here. I might grab a sun marker to track where we are. Okay. So we're doing a move. On turn 1, that's enter. And you always enter on the formation map in one more groups in one of the low boxes, like tail low or oblique low or something like that. So we're certainly going to get some of these guys in, starting here at tail at low. To each turn, you can follow the arrows and move areas. So for 0 TP, I can move from low to level. For 1 TP, I can move from low all the way to high, use some of that excess energy. I don't have a lot of it, and I might want some of it to actually chase down these bombers as they become stragglers. So I'm going to want to use my turns here. Excuse me. So oblique passes are a little less optimal. They're usually not that effective, but coming out of the sun means that the gunners are going to have a harder time tracking on us, and we're going to not get as much fire coming at us. So there's certainly a reason to do that. Coming in on the nose high or from the tail high is generally going to work pretty well for us, as they did historically. Part of that's represented in the game here by these attack advantages. These are going to be some things that we try and do to get more positive outcomes. The first of which is going to be Swarm, which is if we're able to get 4 fighters to attack one element. And this can't be from the oblique section, so it has to come from either the nose or the tail. And they all have to be determined, not hedging their bets, of the same fighter type and from the same approach box. So they're all going to be coming in from 12 o'clock high, or they're all going to be coming in from 6 o'clock low, something like that. But this gives you 2 more hit symbols, which we might go for. Rot is going to give you, if there is one space eventually here on the board that has 2 fighters in it, that allows you to cancel a hit. And then advantage position. If an element is attacked from more than one altitude and position, so say level on the nose and low on the oblique, that would give you the positional advantage and subtract a hit. So what's been working out fairly well for me so far has actually been to, well, here's what I'm going to do. I want to eventually go here for Out of the Sun. I think that's going to be useful. And so I'm going to park 2 of my guys in the oblique low box to start working on that. I want the rest of mine on the nose, working their way to come in and perhaps even level, like just get some hits in right away. So we're going to start here and work our way up. Okay, so that's turn 1 move. Return step, nobody's returning from a previous pass. Escort step, all right, so now we'll I've made kind of my decisions on what my plan is going to be, but we'll see here now if the enemy had other ideas. So returning to the play aid where we set all of this up, we'll notice that here are the escort numbers that we're going to be rolling for the near target in 1942. So let's go ahead and roll that. Okay, I rolled an 8, which means that there are not going to be any escorts. They're too far into Germany. They're too far into the occupied Europe. So nobody is helping these guys. It's just them and me, which is fine by me. Okay, so that's the escort phase. No one's recovering. I don't have anyone that has damage on them that I have to figure out what to do with it. Blast and Flak, we are going to do that. So let's take a look here at what the Blast and Flak play aid says. This, like Jerry White's other games, is very much a game that you play from the play aids. In fact, if you start into the rule book, you get about 3 pages in and he says, okay, stop. You've seen everything you need to see. Look at the component overview play aid and reference pages as needed, and then just start on the sequences of play. And you'll notice here that, so here for the mission sequence of play, it pretty much tells you everything you have to do, and then if you need to go clarify something, there are callouts here for either page numbers in dark blue or other play aid panels in light blue, so you know exactly where to go. And so I knew that, this says Flak. I know I'm over a city that I have Flak, and so I'm going to see here that I'm going to resolve near target Flak. All right, so we're going to use the situation manual, roll a die to determine which bombers suffer damage, and if any, which fighters and approach boxes are hit. Okay. So let's take a look. We're back to the situation manual, which usually you don't need after you set up, but now I have to figure out which of these configurations might lead to some flak hits. So I'm going to roll for flak. Go ahead and use my red die again. Okay, I rolled a 5, which indicates here that this bomber is subject to a flak hit, and fighters in the lower oblique approach and the tail approach are also subject to hits. Now, thankfully, no one's in an approach box yet, even though, actually, I literally have no one in either of those areas anyway. So we treat each damage icon as a damage result and resolve. Okay, so let's try that. So this, at a roll of 5, was this bomber, so we'll give him his flak result. Just got peppered with some 88. Okay, got a hit in the fuselage. Cast traffic number is 9, rolled an 8, so he is not brought down by that. He takes 2 damage. Damage value on this map to bring a bomber down is 10, so no one's quite there yet. Now we check for cohesion. As this, the defensive firepower of the fighting box really relied on tight station keeping and overlapping fields of fire. As the pilots started to not be able to hold their formations quite as well, those overlapping fields diminished. And so, when combat happens and real things happen, it kind of gets hard to hold that formation. So if this formation loses cohesion, it will become less effective. So we're going to roll. If we count the number of markers, any type, present in the formation, if we roll under that number, the cohesion will degrade. So we have 3 markers. We need to roll 2 or under to degrade the cohesion. I rolled a 10, which does not degrade the cohesion. They keep it together. Okay, and now an attack. No one's in an attack block, so we advance to the next turn, and we go to the top. Okay, so everyone's climbing. These guys are coming level. These guys are going level. That's all we're doing. Nobody's returning. There's no escort to save the day. Nobody's recovering. We get another flak roll. All right, so I rolled another 5 on flak. So that is going to give us the same result that we had previously, which was, if I can get the right, here we go, which is that same bomber. So it's just not that guy's lucky day. Some gunner on the ground really has a bead on him. I like to think that they're softening them up for me. So, okay, this guy got hit in the engine. So this has a much more serious catastrophic number of 5. So I'm going to roll for that. Okay, I rolled a 1, which is not high enough. So we'll flip that over, and we'll note that. Okay, so now he's got 2 damage markers. Notice that this one was a 0, so it's not helping me much on bringing him down. All right, so that was the flak phase. Cohesion, there are now 4 markers. So if I roll a 3 or under, and I roll a 6, so they maintain their cohesion. The red die, black die, at this point, it's completely arbitrary. Just whichever one I happen to roll for, reach for, in case you're wondering. And there's no one in attack, so we're back to the top of the turn sequence, now in turn 3. So now in this move, I'm going to have my oblique guys continue to climb. I want them to take advantage of that sun on a subsequent pass. But I'm going to bring all 4 of these into the approach level block. And I will give them their altitude block so I don't forget. So all 3 of these guys are on approach level, ready to begin their pass. Nobody's returning, no escort, no recovery, blast and flak. Okay, so now I got to worry about, does the flak hit these fighters in that approach? I rolled another 5. Sometimes I wonder about the balance of some of the newer GMT dice, but we're going to play with the dice provided. So rolled a 5. It's this guy yet again. And if you recall, the friendly fire flak on a 5 was the lower oblique approach and the tail approach, not the nose approach. So one more for poor bomber there in slot. Another engine hit. This time the critical number is a 5. Okay, I rolled a 10. So that result happened. So we're going to do 2 things. The result here shown is that he fell out of formation. Okay, so he is no longer there. He's a hole in the formation. He has fallen out entirely. All right, so I'm going to mark that as fallen. Now, I'm not just, in the standard game, that's all you would do. You would mark this up, if a fighter had done this, you would mark up the experience and the victory points for knocking a bomber out of formation. Our fighters did nothing, so we don't get experience or victory points for this. But we're playing the advanced game, so we will note that this guy has now a straggler. He's either still coming in and lagging behind everyone, or he's starting to turn around and limp home by himself. He got a big hit to the engine. So we're going to put all of his damage markers over here on turn 3 when he fell out of formation. That way we can go back and get him later. He's fallen out, so I mark him here with a fallen -1. That decrements the firepower numbers in all adjoining spaces by 1. Him not being here now has left a hole in the defensive fighter coverage. So that worked out well for us. Thank you, gunners on the ground. You're getting a case of scotch, or I guess a nice case. It's like we're in September here, right? So we should have some nice beer. Okay, so that was blast and flak. Cohesion. You'll notice now that the cohesion number is actually easier. We went from 4 to 3, and perhaps with that guy not being there anymore, it's a little bit easier to hold formation. So rolling again, I rolled a 6. So the cohesion does not degrade still. They're still mostly holding it together. Now we're going to attack. Okay, so we're switching now to the attack phase sequence of play. With these 4 fighters now that they're attacking. I still have 3 bomber targets to go for. And the first step is going to be approach. We shift the fighters from the approach boxes to the bombers. And we need to note if they're coming out of the sun. In our case, they are not. So I've got 3 bombers to go for here, and then a couple of fighters. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to park 2 fighters going after this guy all the way by himself with 1 damage marker. And then I'm going to have 1 each here and here. Okay, we'll go with that. Yep, okay, we'll do it. So that's the approach segment. Now we're in the engage segment. I have to select their modes. Are they determined or are they evasive? I'm going to have them be determined because I would like them to really get some good results here. That puts them at more risk, but we're gonna try it. We're going to now do collision checks. So here, these people are sharing a space. They are in close proximity to themselves, to each other, to the bombers. So there's a chance here that someone's going to need to, kind of abort their run because they're too close to something, or hopefully not that they hit something. So I'm going to do a blind pull here of the damage markers. So this is what we'll see normally when we pull a damage result for one of our aircraft. We flip to the reverse. We now have the proximity side. So here this says no impact. And if we look at the relevant play rate, that tells us that there is not a collision. So that's fine. Importantly, we also see that what this tells us is they were determined modes. This actually stays here as a marker in the element, which will help us bring down the cohesion of this element. Okay, so we have so the collision check has been resolved. We select maneuvers. Which way do I want these guys to go? I have sun here, and so if I could have all of these guys climb and go this way, they can head essentially towards the sun and come back out of the sun. And that's what I'm going to have everyone do. So everyone here is going to have a maneuver marker of climb. Okay, and I'm going to flip it to the roll side. Everyone is going to be climbing and rolling to the oblique. So this just kind of locks us in on what they're planning on doing as they go through this run. Okay, so that was the engagement step. Now we check for advantage. Do we have any of these advantages? And we note that we do. I've got 4 fighters attacking this element from all BF-109s from the high space. So I have achieved swarm. Okay. We'll also note that there is a space with 2 fighters. So I have achieved rot. So I will be able to use these to make sure that I get sufficiently strong results. Okay, first things first. Let me go over here and take a look at this straggler. We're now in the burst phase where we're going to resolve attacks for these guys. I'm going to start here looking at letting my expert kind of take a crack at this. He is in a space with 2 firepower printed on it. However, that is decremented by 1 due to the fact that there's a hole in the formation. So this is 1 firepower on the nose level from a determined fighter. So looking here at a nose attack card, we come across to find how much firepower is printed in the space, in our case 1. Okay. We look for high, level, or low. We are level. All right. And then if we're evasive, it's the lower half. If we're determined, it's the upper half. So we're in this space here, which is pretty terrible. Okay, so we'll note that there's a collision symbol. I will use this character's luck to negate the collision. I'm sorry. There's a damage symbol. I'll use their luck to negate the damage. I'll flip that. There's a pass-through of 2. So they actually, I'm nose on. I'm zipping through this formation really fast. So I will actually end up, by the time I get some good damage on me, here. So that's now where he is for continuing fire when that happens. And very regrettably, I suffer another collision check. So we'll go ahead and pull that collision marker. Okay. Proximity, 1 TP. So what this tells me is I pay a tactical point or he has to exit. I will go ahead and pay that tactical point to keep him on the board. And again, this stays in here. So this is not just a collision check between fighter and fighter. This is also a collision check between fighter and bomber. So the bombers are having to respond to this as well. So not a lot going on there. That guy had an unsuccessful pass, but he didn't die, so that's a good thing. So now we'll go on to the next one, Newman. So he will pull his nose attack card. And again, this is 1 firepower in this space. Level determined. So level determined, 1 firepower. Again, I suffer collision, but I do actually get a hit. And you can resolve these in any order. So I'll resolve the hit first on this guy. Okay, that's a fuselage hit, and now I actually have super. I have a shifting sun box. That's going to really make the rest of this not great, but we'll try it. Okay, so the fuselage, there's no catastrophic number here, so he doesn't just fall right out of the sky. So we'll flip that over, put that there. I'll resolve the shifting sun, which is essentially they're turning somehow, and so this formation is turning. The sun is shifting relative to them. So I'll roll a die. Even, I'll bring it this way. Odd, I'll bring it this way. Okay, I rolled odd. So now no, super. So now nose is where the sun is on their nose. That's great. Oh well. Okay, so all right, we were doing this result. So he had a damage result, which wasn't terribly impressive. He will pass through for 2, just like his buddy did. And he has his own collision check. Okay. All right, no effect. All right. Well, I was hoping for better here, but we'll keep going. Now we'll go with my leader here. I haven't forgotten about these. Okay, we'll get into these. This is the one that I really want to use them on. So again, this is 1. There's no decrement here because this fighter that has fallen only affects those 4 spaces. So this guy is going to do another nose attack at power of 1 against a defensive power of 1, nose attack level. Interesting. We'll go with that. So we'll see here that this result is it's a passer of 2 hits, and the fighter expends his ammo. So we'll do, again, we resolve these in any order you want. The 2 hits on this bomber are a wing hit with nothing special and an engine hit. We'll go ahead and resolve that critical. That's a 6 on that. I only rolled a 2, so nothing terribly impressive there. I am going to use, one at a time, these swarm markers. I want to knock this down so this is a safer space. So I'll use the first swarm for another damage marker on this lead. Okay. 10 is the critical number on that one. I rolled a 3. So total damage on this bomber is 3 so far. I'll use the final one. Okay. And a wing hit with no critical. This is really going great. So far this bomber has 4 damage on it. And 4 damage markers. Nothing going. All right. So that, the pass-through is 2. So now this guy will do his pass-through to here. And he is marked as out of ammo. So he's not going to really be able to do anything else for me. All right. And so finally I've got this poor guy that's kind of left in a lurch. This was not a very successful strafing pass. He is in a space that's marked as 2 for the fire. He's level on the nose at 2, determined. So level, nose, 2 determined, 1 hit, no ammo, 2 pass through, like previously. Okay. So we'll pull the hit first. 7 is the catastrophic number here. I rolled a 5. So another hit on him for no effect. This aircraft is also out of ammo and will pass through essentially to the edge of the board. He'll go as far as he can. All right. Well, that could have been better. But that's why I do have some other fighters. Discard those for now. Okay, so that was the burst phase, and really nothing else happened. So now we come here to the breakaway phase. First off, all of these fighters suffer continuing fire. They are getting shot at on this entire pass from one side to the other, and conceivably these aren't the only 4 bombers in the sky. Someone else is shooting at, might be shooting at them as well. So we're going to do continuing fire based on the fire in their space. So this space is 1. These fighters are determined. So I'll kind of go from here to here on resolving continuing fire. So this one Determined 1, so there's no combat result. Engine sputter. If climbing or climb rolling, after resolving continuing fire, spend 1 TP or exit. So I'm going to have to spend my last tactical point to keep this guy on the board, which I will do. Okay. And so now he has done his continuing fire. He now breaks away to the return box, the determined fighters on that oblique. Okay. I'll now be doing this fighter. He is determined as well. Okay. 1 determined. There's no hits. And here's the text. After continuing fire, if diving or rolling, not happening. So he also breaks just fine. Okay. Now it's the 2 of my guys that are out of ammo and who really I was hoping for a lot more from. Again, I'll do this one and then that one. These folks are in, are in a 1 space. So continuing fire 1, determined. Fine, slow climb. We'll note here that since he has climb rolling, that increases the effective firepower from 1 to 2. Still no result. And they break away to the tailed position. So they just had not a good pass coming out. I'm going to use this guy's break any... Well, just to show that it does things, I want to use that pilot's break anywhere skill because that's the thing that he's good at, apparently. Which normally, like I said, he would have to go to the oblique, but this card result just gave him going back to the tail. The break anywhere expert skill states that instead of passing through, the fighter may immediately... Oh, actually, so I didn't have to suffer any of this. Do this before continuing fire. Okay, got it. So, that skill would have allowed me before continuing fire, just go, nope, he is going to go, and like it says, any. So I could have him come back to the nose. Now, the problem is he's out of ammo. So that's not going to do that much for me. But still, he could. Okay. And then finally, this fighter is going to go, okay, so he's determined. That space is 1. He's not dive rolling, so he does get a hit. I'll go ahead and spend that rote advantage to negate that hit. And so he continues here to that return box out of ammo. All right, well, somewhat of an underwhelming turn, I'm afraid to say. I got a really good position coming in. I was able to get a lot of attack advantage. I teed up and I got lots of chit draws on all these guys. I just wasn't able to convert. I really wasn't. So that is kind of a problem. So we'll now go to the next mission turn and go with move. We'll note that for moving, we'll just move these guys into their approach box. They're approaching from high. So I remember that. I'll give them their stack of blocks. Okay. They're no longer coming out of the sun, which was kind of the whole idea of that. Moving down here to return, now what would happen is these, if they aren't marked with a damage marker, fighters in these areas return to one of these spaces. The ones that are marked as out of ammo can't do anything for me. If they have a gun jam, they have a 50-50 chance of being able to do something, but as they are literally useless. All they can do is get shot at and crash and do bad things. So they're going to go home. And so from the return box, you can exit. So Johann is going to exit and safely land back at home station. I will note this for Johann, that he did successfully land without issue, earning an experience point. Same thing here with Kremler. He's out of ammo, so he will also land without issue. So marking him as landed and 1 experience point. Okay. All right, which leaves me the 2 up here. They will come back into oblique high. Now, one thing I could have done, let's take a look. Instead of moving here to this approach box, maybe I do that. Oh, I don't have the TV, never mind. So from this box, I could move down to level for 0. I could move down to low for 0. I could bleed that speed. I can come into the approach and start shooting at things. I can move to the tail, any of these spots, for 0 as well. And that makes sense. I'm kind of, up here on their side, and I'm just kind of, I'll slow down and I'll let the bomber go by, and I'll come up here. If I want to get to the nose, I'm going to have to spend some TP. So, I think I want to do that actually. Instead of coming here to the approach box, I'm going to go to the tail high, because this is just going to be more advantageous strafing pass for me, I think. So we're going to do that. We're not in the approach box. These guys are down here in this approach box. You know what? I may even come in tail level. I'm going to come down here. That way I can tee up on next round. I'll be able to get 2 different approach boxes at 2 different altitudes. The flak's probably going to punish me for doing that, but I can do this. Okay. No escorts, no recovery, blast and flak. So if the flak knocked these guys down, I'm not going to be a happy camper. In the end here, if your action results in the bomber falling out or being destroyed, you get the experience and victory points. If the flak does it, you don't. And so essentially this is the flak equivalent of sniping my kill. So let's hope they don't do that. Okay, so flak this round is a 4. Hey, I didn't roll a 5. What does that do? And this point, we have the trail bomber being the one that gets the chip. So 9 is the catastrophic number. I roll a 1, so it's not catastrophic. He picks up 3 damage, bringing him as a total of 7. That's blast and flak. Unit cohesion. Okay, these folks have to lose some cohesion. There's no way around it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. All of these collision check modifiers, since they happened when I was determined, apply. So there's no number I can roll that would be greater than a 13 on a D10. So these folks are now in loose formation. Every space for this bomber formation has 1 less firepower. They just don't have their stuff together. And this is another marker actually for all these attacks. So I wait 1 more turn even, which I will before my next attack, and they will have to become broken. Just nothing there. Okay, no one's in an attack space. We will move 1 more, getting close to our endurance here, but we will try it. All right, 1 more go here. Move. These folks are all going to go into their approach spaces. This is when it's going to be useful that we have these altitude blocks. That way I remember where folks came from. So those guys have their 2. These folks have their 1. Okay, so we've got those altitude blocks up. They're in their approaches. Nobody's returning. There are no escorts, no recovery. Blast and flak. See, all right, so this is where I'm crossing my fingers. Some fighter might have to suffer a problem here, but we'll just see how this goes. So rolling again on our flak chart, I rolled a 3. 3 damages the lead bomber and the nose approach. Okay, I lucked out here. Okay, so the flak did not interrupt my bombers. Nose fighter has a catastrophic number of 10 on the fuselage. I rolled a 2. That's 1 damage. This guy's damage is at, let's see here, 1, 3, 4, 5. He's got 5 damage markers on him for 5 damage. That's insane. Okay, so that's blast and flak, no problem. Unit cohesion, I can count the markers here, but there's no number I could roll that would be less than whatever that is, which means that this degrades from loose to kaput. This is just, these guys are nowhere, they're near enough to one another where I can pick them all off in this pass, but they are not an effective defensive fighting formation anymore, which is great for me. Okay, attacking now. How do you want to do this? These guys are coming in from the tail level. They're going to be coming straight in at some guys. Essentially, at -2 with this fallen, all of these numbers are 0. There's just nothing here that's going to be particularly useful. So I want, and I don't have any leader abilities yet, so let's do this. I want this guy to be hit by an oblique run. I want this guy to be hit by an oblique run. this guy is going to get hit by a tail run. And I'm going to have this guy coming in. Like if I don't bring one of these guys down, it's just going to be embarrassing for all of us. So he's going to come in here. So that's going to be our approach. Nobody's out of the sun. We're all on the box. So now we select each fighter's mode. I'm going to go in determined. There's literally 0. All these numbers are decremented to 0 everywhere on this formation. This is a really poor formation to begin with, and they have just lost it due to this flak. So I'm going to be aggressive. There's only one fighter in any given space. Maneuvers, where are these guys going? I'm going to have all of these folks come up. It's really not going to matter. We're pretty much done after this. So I'm going to have all these folks break, dive, and come here to the flank. So we're going to just do that. Dive, roll, dive, roll, dive, roll, and dive, roll. Okay. All right. So check for advantage. I do have the position advantage. Okay. You'll note that the element is being attacked from oblique and low, high, and level. I'm sorry, oblique and tail, high, and level. So I do have the position advantage in case someone gets a lucky shot off. All right, now each fighter attacks. All right, let's go for this. Claude back here is going to do his roll. Level tail, it's a different card deck for the tail. Level tail determined at 0. So 0, level determined, that's a hit. So do a random pull here. Catastrophic number is 10 on the fuselage. Rolled a 2. So 6, 7, 8. It's not enough to bring him down. Maybe the flak will help me out next time. And that's all that happens there. Now I'm going to have Obster here on the lead. Again, it's printed, strength is 3, -2 for kaput, -1 for that bomber being out of the formation. 0 here. So tail 0, level determined. That's a hit. Okay. Fuselage is the catastrophic number of 10. I rolled a 2. Just 2 damage, which I believe brings this one from 5 to 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Super. And that's all that happens there. So now we're going to go with this one on the oblique, high, 0 determined. Oblique, high, 0 determined. All right, he just sails through and does nothing else. He misses. I promise you, this isn't usually not how that goes. Okay, and now Zweigart is coming here on his quarry. Again, he is coming oblique, high, 0 determined, and he just sails by. He doesn't get a hit. Nobody hits him. He's just all the way up here now. All right, well, we tried. And that's about all we can say at this point. So all that burst happens. We're now doing breakaway. Everyone's going to suffer continuing fire at 0, essentially, here. So we're just going to go through each of them. Continuing fire at 0 determined. So, okay. If dive rolling, skip continuing fire. So I'm fine doing that. Bringing Cloud back here to his return box. All right. Obster now. If diving, and that's just a straight dive, not a dive away. We're not doing that. So, but again, 0 on determined, no hits. So he will also report down here. Okay. Now both of these guys, they're both dive rolling. 0. Hard roll. If dive rolling, skip continuing fire. All right, and then finally, this guy here, same deal. Friendly fire. Oh, I love this one. Okay. Roll a die. If even, damage the nearest bomber. If odd, just skip continuing fire. So let's hope for an even. Of course I rolled an odd. Of course I did. Okay. So skip continuing fire. He breaks away. So all of these folks are now down here in this return box. They are hungry for something. All right. Oh, that's right. Okay. That's the end of combat. We're now on to turn 6, which is the last turn that we're going to be able to fly here. So what I'm going to do here is on return, there's a little bit of ambiguity from my read of the play aids on this. From any of these flight boxes, during either return or move, a fighter may exit. It does state that from here, fighters may go from the playboard into chasing down a straggling bomber, which is what I would like all of these guys to do now. So let me just verify without slowing things down here too much that, here we go. In the advanced game mode, bombers knocked out. During the move phase, a fighter may move off the formation map to pursue a fallen bomber. If this is okay, so he's on the formation map on that move phase. They can all shift off to follow that bomber. So we will do that. Must be able to move. It costs nothing for a fighter to do this, but the fighter must be able to move. He can't be in the return box. Oh. All right. Well, that's awful. So explicitly here, the fighter can't be in the return box. So this guy over here that is a straggler went away. Since all of my fighters were so busy trying to get someone else down here, they had missed it. That was a bad play on my part. Really the historical play, and the thing I should have done is one or two guys, instead of going into the approach boxes to then go for these guys, one or two should have split off. I thought I had another turn to get them out here, but then I forgot the cycling back from return, so that didn't happen. All right, and so that's just going to be it. So they come back from their return, escort, recovery, doesn't happen. Blast and flak. I could roll blast and flak just to, cry and watch these things fall away. No attack's going to happen. As far as my squadrons goes, they're not getting any more bombers falling out. They're not getting any kills. We didn't get any victory points this mission. This was an awful mission for me. Absolutely awful. As you can see here, I mean, I teed everything up, but absolutely nothing happened. So the net effect here at the end of this in cleanup is each one of these pilots gets some experience. They get credit for having done this and landed. So Claude flies his first sortie and lands for an EP. Let's see. Ulster completes his first, lands for an EP. Newman lands for an EP. And Zweikart lands as well. The squadron itself received, so those were me updating that. The squadron itself actually receives no experience points whatsoever. They only receive experience for bombers that fall out that they were responsible for, not the flak, or bombers destroyed. And we forgot to chase that guy down. So no EP earned. We are starting out of 5 and no VP earned. We carry forward the 4. And just big old nil here on that mission log. Yipe. Fast forward a little bit here. If you want to make sure that we're kind of on track here. To keep the campaign going, you have to do a couple of things. First, you have a loss limit starting in 42 and a pilot minimum. You need to essentially have a full roster. And we're going to have that probably unless some terrible things happen here. And I've only lost 6 pilots. So far, we haven't lost anyone. We have a guy wounded, but he's not lost. To outright win the scenario, we'll need to have 15 VP here in 42. That's not going to happen. To lose the VP, to lose the scenario right away, we have to not meet 5. We currently have 4 victory points and 3 more sorties to go. So I'm somewhat confident that I'm not going to get sacked as the commander of this squadron. But I'm clearly disappointed in how that went. So, okay, put Schweikart back here. It's Claude. I am missing one of my. Let's just see where these guys go. Okay, so those guys go there. Let's go there. Seem to be missing someone. I'll find them later. Okay, we'll get those dice out of here. Clean up the board a little bit. Okay, so all in all, again, quite disappointed in the net effect of all that. Just look at all these hits. Look at all this. And nothing for it. So, all right. I will take this all. Oh, there's Johan. As my personal failure, cross to bear. I'll take this as a set of lessons learned. Get these guys off. Okay. And you'll pardon my sounds of shuffling. But yeah, so I mean that's how a turn plays out. And so you can see here, sitting down, talking about it, explaining it. You're looking at an hour. If I were just to sit down and power through this, it'd be about half an hour for one of these. So this isn't a sit down in 2 hours and finish it campaign. The campaign is actually quite a long thing. Maybe if you're experienced at it and you're doing one of the 6 mission campaigns, you could do that in a sitting. You're just doing one season. But anything more serious than that, you'll want some place to leave this game set up. I haven't seen a vassal module for this yet, but GMT, if you're listening, I would be very much interested in a vassal module for this game. That way I could save the game state and just keep playing it. That being said, the production values on this game really are rather incredible. The counters are all nice, beefy counters. The blocks are all well done, well shaped. The cards are nice, stiff, rigid cardstock. You can bridge them, do things like that, and have it be fine. I don't feel like I have to sleeve these. And in fact, all of these boards, as a matter of fact, are backside printed. And so Formation Map 2 is actually just the reverse of this map. Let's flip it over here. Okay, so this is Formation Map 2. As you can see, there's a lot more bombers, and these numbers are all significantly higher. Like, this is just a bad place to be. And so it's a lot more hazardous of a terrain than what we're doing here in our early war scenario. I'm gonna leave it here just because I feel the karma from how bad things are going that we're gonna roll and we're gonna be given this map instead of the one that we had been playing with. So I just, for some reason, I feel like that's going to be a thing. So, all right. So that was the end of Mission 3. Let's go ahead and take a look and figure out what Mission 4 is going to be. And again, coming back here to the appropriate play aid. Yeah, I got everything off of there. Let me check here again with my wounded pilot from one of my early sorties. Let me see if he comes back. 9 or 10, he comes back. 6, he stays up there. If you were really hurting for pilots, you could essentially write them off, right? Transfer them out of your squadron, make them a convalescent, and say, give me someone out of pilot training. You only do that essentially. The way that they do it is any one pilot on here, one time you can line through them when they die or when you fire them and write in a new guy. And they suggest all of these have different sequential letters of the name, A, B, C, D, F, G, H, etc. So just come up with another name that starts with that letter. That way, reusing the counters, easy to do. But you can only do that once. And so if I let go of him because he's wounded, I won't be seeing him for a while. He's actually got quite a bit of experience points, so I'd like to let him go there. I'll also note, boy, some of these guys are just so close. It takes 5 XP to get an expert skill. And I've actually got a couple folks here that aren't expert, that are pretty close to becoming an expert and getting an expert skill. And this is how you make them. So, okay. So I am now looking for 2 things. I'm looking for the scenario book, and I am looking for here we go, setup play aid. So we've got those. First thing that we're going to do is figure out what map we're on. Again, chances are, just on odds, that we're back on map 1. I'll go ahead and roll it to see. I rolled a 2. What did I tell you? My karma. I rolled a 2. We're on map 2. Okay, I wanted to show you all map 2, and I knew there was a chance that would happen. So here we are. Here's map 2. as if my squadron didn't have a bad enough time already. And you'll note that my squadron still only has 5 experience points, so I can't like go, nope, I'm going back to map 1 on my squadron experience. There's a nice little abstraction there. Essentially, the more successful you are, you can abstract, the better in pecking order the food chain you are versus your other squadrons, and the earlier detection that you get because you get better working relationships with ground controllers, etc. In this case, I don't have that chip to cash in right now. Okay, so we're on map 2. We'll figure out when we catch this group. Again, this is a near target interception. So mission 4, 42, map 2, near target. All right, and we'll see how many op we get. Whew, 10. Okay, there's one thing that worked out for us, and that's that I am in fact getting all 6 op. So what we're going to flesh this out. At this stage in the long campaign, I'd like to round out my roster. I'd like to kind of spread around both the risk and the experience again. I want to slowly bring up this entire group. Although that being said, this is a pretty nasty board, and I do want to have some of my experts in here. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring in Zweikert back in because he's got the luck skill. So we'll bring him. I would like to bring Grim in for his aim skill, which allows you to, when drawing, draw 2 damage markers and apply both of them. So that's going to be the nucleus. Those are going to be the 2 experts I bring in on this mission. Let me bring in, let's see here, on this first group. Yeah, I'll bring in Adamant and Bauer. Okay. And then on the second group, let me bring in, let's see, I'm bringing in Zweikert. Let me bring in Schmidt and someone else. There's Schmidt. I'll bring in Schmidt and Themming. Okay. So here are my 6. All right. So that's, we've got the mission type. I've got my roster fleshed out for this mission. Those are the people that scramble. I'm going to, again, hold on escort, although being over the target, I'm not anticipating that we're going to have serious escort presence. So we've got that there. Now looking at the situation. So we'll go back to the situation manual here. Notice now we're on map 2, and we're going to start inbound over the target, page 7. Because like the map 1, we're treating previous damage from the inbound. So here we go. So rolling on previous damage on this play aid. I rolled a 9, which I like. That's going to be quite a bit there. Okay, so I'm going to pull 3 markers. 1 here. 1 here. And 1 here. Okay. Catastrophic number is 10 on both of these. So roll on the lead. Roll a 4. Rolling on the rear element. I rolled a 3. Okay. And we'll ignore the sun here because I don't know where the sun is. So 1 damage on this guy. 1 damage on this guy. 1 damage on this guy. Okay. And this kind of represents the effects of flak as they got to the area, or maybe some another squadron that got them inbound, or maybe even some maintenance issues. But there's some damage there. Okay. So that's there. Now we need to consider where they are anchored. Like I mentioned, this is now part of a much larger group, and they're probably not all by themselves. So we'll figure out where the rest of everyone is. And at 7, they are anchored level and low. So pardon me while I find my anchored shit. Here we go. Okay. So level, I'm sorry, let's double check that because level and low doesn't sound like it makes much sense. Oh, I'm sorry, I rolled on the wrong one. Okay, let me do that again. So it would be level and low were they inbound, but they are now in fact over the target, so they would have broken up a little bit. So at a roll of 7, they're actually not anchored. Near the target, they're all kind of lining up to get into a nice line to drop all these bombs. So they're not really, so they're not anchored. That's good. We can come at them from whatever direction we choose. Okay, where's the sun? That's the next question. Roll a 4. which means that it is high on the far flank. They told me that this would be the case last time, and they fooled me. All right. Let's see here. And tactical points and flight limit. So let's roll here for tactical points. I rolled an 8, which is going to give me 4 tactical points. And now for my flight limit, I rolled a 3, which is 5 turns. I like more turns than that. And let's all try and remind me to get people out of here in time to chase down these stragglers. If any of you guys are present live and have the chat client up, yell at me. All right. Make sure that I don't miss this. But that should be set up for us. Okay. So let's see. All right, we're good. We've determined the situation, and we're now on to resolving the mission. All right, we got to move these guys into a low box somewhere here. Now, one thing I can do is, in the advanced game, you can regroup. You can essentially spend a turn with a bunch of fighters. I'll go ahead and bring that up real quick, kind of show you the idea on it. But essentially, you burn a turn for a main effort in order to increase the amount of tactical points you have. And so, let's see here. The regrouping fighters must be in the same box on the formation map, and you can only select one box each mission turn for regroup. You may not regroup the pursuit map. And only if a bomber is not already damaged on the turn track, only as long as no one's already been knocked out. And what we do is we essentially burn a turn and count the number of fighters in the box and increase the TP by that number. So if we had 4 fighters in a box, we could burn a turn to get 4 more TP, which potentially could give us a lot of options in the end game. I don't know what I want to do yet, so let's just figure this out. Okay, my experts are Zweickart and Grimm, like I mentioned. Let me mark them so I remember their special skills. Zweickart has luck, and Grimm has aim. So there's luck for Zweickart. Here's aim for Grimm. Okay. Okay. Looking around here at our numbers, 2 really does kind of look like it's about as good as we're going to get for the moment. We do have the sun here, which is going to help us. Coming oblique, but like we saw, oftentimes with oblique, we just zipped right through everything and didn't get anything done. So I'm inclined to come in them at the nose and maybe go for what we were doing previously on trying to get swarm, which would require one element, this one or this one or this one or this one, one element attacked by 4 fighters of the same type, from the same approach box, in the same wave. So, yeah, that could be awesome. So let's do that. Let's take these 4. Oh boy, now I did it. All right, there we go. There we go. You want to replay the video and tell me if I got that right? Let's take a look here. Yep, that's right. Okay. Okay, so I think the 4 of these guys come in here low. I'm going to try and get Schwarm and Rote with them. I gotta bring these guys down. I don't think I come approach low. I think I come up, get a level approach, and try from there. I think these guys come here and come oblique somewhere, and I don't know where. Keep in mind that these guys are going to be attacking fighters from these boxes, and so maybe if I could have these guys come in level at one of these boxes, here or here, these guys can come in oblique. So maybe I pick here for a little bit. noting that this guy gets a benefit, +1 if high. So if I am coming in high, this guy's got a benefit. So actually maybe do it the other way. Maybe I come here and have these guys come obliquely at the lead element. So yeah, let's go with that. Okay, so that was the move. Okay, nobody is returning. Let's see what the escorts are doing. This is, again, near target, 1942. I rolled a 4. Okay, super, which means L3S. So this is light, which means I get only 5 escort markers. And this is near target, so they actually stick around until turn 3. I have them until, I have these Spitfires until turn 3. So for light, you get 5 escort markers. This must be a target near the coast or something to have the fighters still around. So, okay, so I have 5 escort markers, and these guys are going to be placed over here. If I can move this up onto the escort section of the playmat. First thing I'm going to do is set them up, figure out where they go, and so that will involve a die roll. I rolled a 1, which means that all 5 markers come here to above trailing. And the escorts exit on 3. Okay. Oh, and flight limit was 5, not mission turn. Okay, there we go. All right. So I now roll. I check what they do here in this above trailing box, which is one marker is going to do. I rolled a 4, so one marker is going to go to the return box at tail high. So back here at the tail, the return box, tail high. So there's actually a fighter escorts there, pretty tucked in, pretty close. If I do zip straight through front to back, I will return up here and be intercepted by these escorts. And I know that, I see that here. Additionally, if I just kind of work my way here, the escorts can move down and get me. So they're now kind of boxing me out over here. But that's right, so that was escort phase. Recovery, no one recovers, blast and flak. Thankfully, we do have flak. Hopefully, unlike last time, these guys will save some of the glory for us, but in the end, if they can knock a guy out of formation, this time I hope to remember to go chase him down instead of just sit there like an idiot and shoot at bombers in the formation. Okay, so flak results. Nobody's in any approach boxes, so I don't have to worry about the approach. I rolled a 3, which means that, not worried about that, I get a damage marker here and here. So that's his marker, and that's his marker. Okay, so critical value of 10 on the wing hit there. I rolled a 9, not quite enough. Critical value of 7 on this bomber. I rolled a 1, not quite enough. So, okay, we're getting there. Cohesion. Each one of these are individual elements. These I could roll for, but I have to roll less than a 1, which I can't do on a D10. So now I'm going to come here to this element. I have to roll less than a 2. So theoretically, I could and do roll a 1. So I'll mark this element as loose. Okay. That there's no attack phase, so that will conclude turn 2. So now we're moving. I think at this point everyone climbs. Just kind of get ready for this. We're teeing up here on turn 2. I don't think I want to use the get tactical point thing yet. I don't think I've got enough enemy bombers starting to fall out. I got to get some effects here myself. So, okay, so we just did that. So that was the move. Nobody returns. I get to see what the escorts do. This guy sits here, fat, dumb, and happy. There's no reason for him to not be here. I have to check again on what these guys do. So I rolled an 8. Which super brings them in the box with the most fighters. So this guy zips in and intercepts my main force coming in from the front. So we really do need here to now pause and actually roll the escort sequence. So we checked for escort a station, and then resolve aerial combat on play aid E. So panel E is helpfully on the what all the bits look like panel pieces, which tell you what to do with collision checks and bomber damage, element cohesion, etc. So we're now here on aerial combat. So we'll flip this guy over and see what he is. 4 Spitfires. Okay, we are a 109. Our fighters were not higher than the escort. The escort came in on us. There are not more fighters than escort. We have the same number of fighters as the escort, regrettably. So the answer here is no. And we are fighting Spitfires. So we are rolling on the bottom row of this table to see what happens. So rolling a d10, I roll an 8. I don't know if that's good or bad. D is dogfight, 8 is B, break off. All right, break off here. So that result is the fighters, all of them, all of my fighters, and 1 escort marker exit. So all 4 of these guys get in a tussle with these escorts and are essentially removed from combat. They are now doing air combat maneuvers. They are attempting to dogfight to save their own butts. And by the time everything's done, the bomber stream is gone. All 4 of these guys pull up a big fat goose egg and just end up going home. So I'll go ahead and return them to the force pool and just denote each of them as having landed. I don't lose any of them. That was not the result of that combat. They just ended up burning gas. At least I don't think I lost anybody. Nope, an X would have been killed, 1 fighter destroyed, E would have been killed, fighter earns a kill, that would have been awesome. Break off is what happened. So they just, or maybe that's it. We didn't get a dogfight result, we actually got a break off. So they just saw discretion as the better part of valor and turned tail. Which, maybe they're right, but like I mentioned, I am kind of hoping to not get fired myself. So let's see, Zwikert lands. His 3rd successful sortie doing nothing. Grim lands. It's nice for him to take off once. Thimming lands. And Adamite lands. All right. So all you guys get to go home and explain to the boss why you're back so early. That was escort, recovery, blast flak. Let's do that now. Back to our situation manual. Page 9. Okay. See what happens now on blast and flak. 6. These 2 guys each get a flak result. Okay. Critical value is 8 for that lead bomber. I roll a 5. Critical value here is 9 for that bomber. I roll a 9. Okay, this bomber falls out. I may sense an opportunity here and just bolt. We'll see. Okay, so this guy falls out, and as before, we will place a bomber out of fallen and go here. Okay, good. Thank you, bombers. I'll get those guys. All right, next thing I will do is roll cohesion. I'll do it element by element. This element could on a roll of a 1 lose cohesion. I rolled a 9. On a roll of a 2 or less, this element would lose cohesion. Higher than that, they would gain it, but it never becomes better than loose. So they can go from between kaput and loose, but they can't get better than loose. So I'm looking for a 1 or a 2. Rolled an 8, so they're fine on cohesion. No one attacks this turn. Now we're into move. So for 2 TP, do I do it? I'm trying to figure out who I attack and how to kind of get the best effect here. I can go straight to the high box. If I want to spend some of this TP, I can go straight here from mid, lose 2 of my 4 tactical points, and get an attack in right now. In fact, I'm going to do that. Okay, so I'm going to lose 2 tactical points. We're now on turn 3. Okay, and I'm going to come here into the high approach. That's what I'm doing. Return escort. We are at the escort exit number. So what's going to happen now is that the escorts are going to turn tail and go home, having already done enough problems for me. So, okay, there goes the escorts. No recovery. Get another flak roll. I note I now do have folks in approach. So the attack roll was a 1. And a 1 gives me nose approach and this bomber. Critical number of 10. I rolled an 8. So another damage there. All right. If anyone's in chat, taking votes in chat on which guy we think we should go for. Because we're going to roll cohesion. This could degrade on a 1. It does not. This could degrade on a 1. It does not. This could degrade on a 1 or a 2. It does not. Okay. So now we are attacking. So I'll get my altitude blocks for these oblique fighters. I'll come in oblique. They are coming in out of the sun. So I'll give them their sun markers. Okay. Let's pull out our handy dandy play aid just to make sure we're not missing anything. Okay, so they are approaching. We shift them to their attack boxes. 4 damage here. I'd be approaching from a 2. 2 damage here. Be approaching from a 2. No damage. 1 damage loose. Approaching from a 4. Hard pass. Going at this one would be approaching from a... Actually, that'd be approaching from a 3. This would approach from a 1. Okay, yeah, I think I do it. I think I come here. This is my weak point. This guy's got more damage on him, but I think I just have to go for trying to do more against him. So both of these guys are going to come in the same square, so I'm going to have a collision potential. Coming at the edge of the formation here. Okay, so that's my approach. They're both coming in determined. I'm going to select my maneuvers now. Where do I want them to go? I don't have bombers to worry about. I'm going to go out towards the tail and go high. That's what I'm going to do. So this is going to be a climb turn so that I can get, if I do get a second pass, which I don't think I will, but that I can, come to the... Actually, I'm going to finish this. I'm going to be in the return box. Turn 4, I'm going to move here. Turn 5, I'm going to chase down that bomber. So why don't I instead dive straight? Just get out of here as quick as I can. There we go. And move on to other pursuits. Hopefully I get this guy, but if I don't, no big deal. Okay, so those guys both have their modes. Collision check. There is a collision check that happens now. No impact. I'll take it. Okay. And checking for advantage, I do have a space with 2 fighters in it that are the same type that came from the same box. So that gives me the Rot advantage. Let's see here. Okay, and so now we do burst. I guess we'll start with the first guy here. And this is a oblique attack, determined high, fire rating of 1. So, yeah, of course. Oblique attack, determined high, fire rating of 1 is a pass-through of 2. So he goes here and then here. Okay. No damage. and a collision check. All right, so that's proximity 2. Flipping back to the play aid that I just alluded to, that does collision checks. This is in evasive mode, it's no collision. Determined, roll a die. If the number rolled is less than that number, then a collision occurs. So don't roll a 1. I rolled a 6, I'm okay. So that stays here as well. All right, well, there's that. The next guy's going to try from the oblique. High. Oh, did I? Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? Let me undo that. Okay. I read the 0 table, not the 1 table. This was on 1. So high determined 1 is a pass-through of 1 only, which actually puts me in a pretty terrible spot. But it does give me a hit. There's no collision result there. It does give me a hit. I'll take that for the hit. Okay. Fighter gets a 10 on the critical. I roll a 3. So that's 2 damage. All right, now the next one. Again, firepower 1, high determined. So firepower 1, high determined. In this case, it's a pass-through of 2 with a hit on the fighter. I'll use my Rot advantage, and he'll do his pass-through of 2. Okay. All right, that's that. It's hoping for a little bit better. Of course. All right, so we've just had all the burst procedures, so now we're going to the breakaway. Each fighter suffers continuing fire. I'll resolve this one first. The continuing fire right here in the middle of this formation is a 4. The worsened formation of this element makes it down to a 3. So this is continuing fire determined at 3. Hard roll. If dive rolling, skip. Well, that stinks. Determined 3, that's a hit symbol. So he suffers a hit. There's a, with out of the sun, there's actually... If you're evasive out of the sun, it's guaranteed that you can cancel a hit. However, I believe with out of the sun being determined, I think it's only a probability. Here we go. If determined rolled even to cancel the hit, odd it does not cancel the hit. Okay, so I'm hoping for an even roll here. And I rolled a 4. So that cancels the hit. Ooh, okay. So he's fine, and he goes, he returns to the low box. Okay. And now we've got this guy here. He has 1 fire coming against him, 2 decremented 1. So a continuing fire at 1 determined. Hard rolling would have negated it. 1 determined is nothing, so he is also fine. Did I have a no ammo result on one of those guys? I did not. Okay, good. All right. And that resolves that round of combat. Okay. So we're now on to turn 4. No move. Both these fighters return to low. No escort, no recovery. Blast. Maybe one of these guys, the Flak can knock one of these guys out of formation for us. Like they did previously. Okay. So, rolling for Flak. 3 is 2 Flak results. One is on this guy, one is on this one. Neither one of these suffer critical, so it's just 1 more damage here, bringing him to a total of 5 damage. He's fine. And then 1 damage here. Okay. All right. So that's the Flak cohesion. We'll just go ahead and roll it as long as we're here. Okay. This element has 2 markers in it. Degrades on a 1. I rolled a 1, so it degrades. Okay. This element degrades on a 1. I rolled an 8. Degrades on a 1 down here. I rolled a 1. So they're starting to loosen up a little bit. Regrettably, I don't have a lot of time in this with this formation before I have to go start chasing down these stragglers. And then here, I've got a lot of markers. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So looking for a 5 or under. I rolled a 1, so that counts. This guy is now kaput. All right. So, yeah, so there we are. How do I want to do this? That was cohesion. No one's attacking. I'm on to turn 5. So I don't want to do what I did last time, which was forget to go chase down this straggler, the one that got separated out from the rest of the fighters. I do recognize now that attacking this formation, but I really should have thought more about where I was going. I do get it. I can get one more run on the formation, should I choose. Or I can go for this. And I can do a little bit of both. But my question is, do I split the party, essentially, and have one of these guys peel off for the straggler? Or do I send both of them for the straggler? And I think at this point, so this is -2. I'm at a really bad place, coming low obliquely through the center of the box to get this guy with 5 damage. I can come get this guy at 2 damage, at 2. And so it's 2 or 2. I mean, I'm really at the wrong spot to come at it. The broken side is on this side, and my fighters are now wrong here. So they are going to break. They're in their move going to come out here on turn 5 and attempt interception. So we are now done on this board. That was all we got. So I'll go ahead and clean up these markers and move us over to the pursuit phase, where we can try and chase down this straggler. Okay. All right, so the pursuit phase is tracked on a separate pursuit map. And this is actually, those of you that have played B-17 Queen of the Skies, this actually looks a lot like, what you might see there with fighters coming at, on the sides or nose or tail. And so let's now head into the advanced game attack sequence for the pursuit, and we'll see what this happens here. So the first thing that we have to do is intercept. Fighters attempt to intercept the bomber. The interception number here is the number of spaces between our fighters and the bomber that got separated. So there are 2. Okay. Select a fallen bomber and 1 or more fighter groups to intercept it. So I want to select them both and roll 1. If I roll a 1, they don't find it, essentially. It was too much time between when it fell out and when they went looking. If I roll anything else than a 1, we got it. Okay, I rolled a 5, so they find the bomber just fine. Okay, before rolling it, you can spend tactical points, but I didn't do that. All right, so now we go to setup. So we set up on the pursuit map here for 1942, which represents the B-17 models of that era. We will transfer these damage markers from that bomber. This is the ones they had. He had these 2 damage markers. The G here tells me that on the advanced game pursuit map, that's actually a gunner hit. He has his gunners are not looking pretty. So he will have a -1. All of these firepowers, the 0, the 0, the 0, and the 1 are all reduced by 1. And he also has an actually, so yeah, we're done here. Very regrettably, we're done here. He has an elevator hit for 2. Okay, the elevator only can take 2 damage, and so this is one of those things where, on setup, you check, is it already destroyed? Immediately make fire and bailout checks as needed. It's also possible the bomber is destroyed due to distribution of the damage markers. If the bomber is destroyed during setup, it means that the aircraft met its demise before the pursuing fighters caught it. These fighters may not intercept another bomber, but the Stoffel does earn EP and VP for the destroyed bomber. Individual fighters do not. All right, so none of these guys get to claim credit for the kill, but certainly interesting. I think if you were to go back in time and look at when this guy fell out, he was brought down by Flak. I think they're the ones that knocked him out. But as the rules state here, the squadron is the one that kind of chased him down and saw him crash into the dirt. So we'll get the VP for that. Experience point for destroyed bomber is 2, and victory point for anything other than inbound is only 1. So upon completion of all of this, these guys get there and see that, report back. We now have a total of 7 EP, which might help us on the next mission, and 5 VP. So we met our threshold on not outright losing, But yet again, I still wish that I had more time on the map and that my fighters would have done something. For the moment, let's do this though. I'll go ahead and denote that Schmidt and Bauer both land safely, having completed their mission, and get their EP. So there's Schmidt and get Bauer here. Okay, he lands. All right. So my logs are current. That happened. For the moment, though, I'd like to take just a few minutes and let's run this as if that wasn't elevator damage. Let me pick another fuselage result here, just for fun, and then that way we can kind of see how this goes. A lot of pretty useless fuselage hits here. F3. Okay, so where's that? Oh, just fuselage. Okay. So there we go. So I've got the gunner hit for 1. I've got the fuselage. All right. And so the fuselage can take 8 damage. You really add up a great many of these to get that fuselage damage limit. But right now this aircraft has 4 of the 8 damage it needs to be brought down. And so let's play this out as if I am bringing this down, even though it did crash and I've got the log all finished and we're not going to do that. So going back to that sequence of play. We transfer the damage markers. We'll say that it didn't actually die. We'll roll a die to figure out where the sun is, okay? I rolled a 7, which tells me that the sun is coming out of 8 to 10 o'clock high. That's just where it happens to be as this guy is tooling around. So I'll put that sun marker over here. We get the fighter group, okay? And we'll play, and they get to make a free first pass. So we will have these guys kind of split out. One guy is going to come here from 12 o'clock high on the nose. Another one is going to come here from 6 o'clock high on the tail. You note that there are TP values listed here. We don't need them. I will note that you also bring over tactical points from the play map. So I'll decrement the 2 tactical points I do have. Bring those on tactical points over here. So I do have 2 tactical points here. Okay. So, place fighters in spaces to attack the bomber. More than one fighter can be in the same space. That's fine. We're just going to go ahead and split this up here and kind of one come from the front, one come from the back. And you do an engagement. You, again, can select the mode as determined or not. I will have both of these guys be determined, since, again, this guy's essentially at 0 defenses. We'll resolve the tail attack first. So a tail high determined 0 is a damage symbol. And so what you do here is you ignore the catastrophic result section of the chit. And you just come over here, and that's a wing hit for 4, which is 1 shy of just blowing the wing off outright. And what we'll do is we'll now roll to see if the wing catches fire. Okay, and so we'll just kind of take a look, make sure that we're resolving damage to the bomber appropriately. Bail out a fire check. Wing damage may prove fatal to the bomber. Each time a damage marker is placed, roll. So I've got 1 marker, and means a fire erupts on a 9 or a 10. I rolled a 1, so fire does not erupt. He is, just got a number more holes in the wing. This guy now goes to the return box. Okay, we're going to roll from the nose then at 12 o'clock high. So 12 o'clock high, 0 determined is 2 and a jam. So I'll mark him as jammed. Jam essentially means that you've got a 50-50 shot of negating your attack result on subsequent turns. So that's awful. All right, so we go through there. That's the end of that combat round. We now circle around for the next pass. So fighters may leave the return box to attack, and you pay TP to do so. So I have 2 TP to work with. And if I want one of these fighters to come in, maybe that's what I do. If you want one of these fighters to come in, I can pay up to 2 TP. If I want both, I essentially have to go down to 1 TP. So why don't I come in here? I'll let Bauer go home. I don't want to waste the TP, and he's probably not going to do anything for me. So Bauer will return, saying I saw him. And Schmidt is going to use those 2 TP. And let's see here. I can come in 10 o'clock high out of the sun for 2 TP. I can come in here level or low on the nose. I can come high out of the tail. Let's try getting the tail again. So we'll do that. Okay. So tail determined 0. That's a hit. So I'll pull chits one more time. Okay. That is a fuselage hit yet again. So that is now 6 damage on the fuselage. I am now out of TP, okay? And so what that happens is, essentially, I can't exit the return box now that I'm here. All these require TP to go to, so I'm done. So had we have tried to resolve this on the map, on this player map, I got a couple passes on this guy all by himself. It was kind of much easier to do so. We'll note that here, if this bomber has an engine damage, one of the effects of that is you do gain tactical points. He's losing power and he's not as fast, and you just keep trying to hit. Turret damage would potentially negate a hit, as the belly turret or the top turret, depending on the year, is unable to function, and then of course the various subsystems. So on this bomber was brought down simply by elevator damage. He kind of fell out, and then by the time we caught up to him, he was cartwheeling into the ground. Yeah. So I think that is probably a good place to wrap. We're at about an hour and 45 minutes, and as we see here, it's about 45 minutes to set up and play another turn. So thanks all of you for joining me for my 2 rather pathetic turns here of Night Fighter, I'm sorry, pardon me, the game I just got off the table, of GMT games, Skies Above the Reich. We're now 2/3 of the way through the 1942 season at 5 victory points. So I'm going to be able to keep going. Most of the squadron has gotten some play. A couple people pretty close to gaining some extra skills. A couple of bombers down, hoping to get a little bit more effective here, particularly as we start seeing more of these advanced box formations going in further into the war. And I would be hard-pressed, actually, to fit the late 1943 formation maps onto the camera. They're just kind of that large. So please do leave your comments and let me know what you thought of the video, what you thought of the game. Please do also swing by reddit.com/r/hexandcounter to join us Redditors talking about tabletop war games such as this one. You can find me as AlecMG, pretty much most of the places you could look. AlecMG on Twitter, Reddit, Twitch, and Alec on Board Game Geek. So thank you all, and good night.